Hello, hello world. Ooh, just sorting my hair out here. Hello everyone. Can you hear me? Can you see me? I can see Mohit is here already. So Mohit, if you can hear me, could you just type and say I hear you, Gigi? Waiting, waiting. Can anybody hear me? Don't know. Oh, I'm starting to panic now. I might get Yevgeny to pop in and make sure. Oh, right. Thank you, Mohit. Thank you very much. Okay. Great. Hey, Courtney, how's it going? Right, so I'm on my own again today. Now, that's not to say that Yevgeny didn't try to join. He did, but I could not work out how to connect him on this software. So I'm playing solo today. But next week, we will revert to our old software, none of which you should experience in any way, shape, or form. You just come to where you usually come, and he will be back on. So I'm sorry if anyone was joining, hoping to see the lovely Yevgeny. That won't happen today. So, whilst we wait for other folks to arrive, gosh, I'm starving. I've just realized I'm very hungry. Whilst we wait for other folks to arrive, I will just do a little introduction to myself, just in case you don't know who I am, although I'm sure you all do. And then once people arrive, we can get going with the session. We have up to an hour today. I will keep going as long as you all keep asking questions. So, who am I? That is a deep and philosophical question, which I often wonder myself. But in theory, I am Gigi, and I am the co founder of Day One Careers. I am an ex Amazon senior leader and bar raiser. Now, how I got into this gig of what we're doing here today was whilst I was at Amazon and I was interviewing a lot and bar raising a lot, I enjoyed it. So I was always happy to volunteer. I started to notice some patterns and strange behaviors in things that I was seeing candidates do. And they were quite consistent strange things, which threw me even more because random strange things you can kind of imagine as outliers, but consistent patterns in strange things and something's clearly a driver. So after, I don't know, a few times of seeing this happen, I decided that I would ask some of the candidates that I was seeing where it was that they got the insight to either choose that strategy or ask that question, etc. And when I did, they pointed me towards YouTube. So when I jumped onto YouTube, and bear in mind this was a little while ago, there wasn't a lot of content creators on YouTube working and sharing info on Amazon interviews. Probably only a couple at the time, although obviously there's bazillions now. None as great as me, obviously, but bazillions. I had a look at their channels. One person had never worked at Amazon before in their life and was clearly getting information secondhand and misinterpreting some of it. Somebody else had worked at Amazon, but they had worked in a very specific part of Amazon, and their advice, although it was accurate for that specific part and wasn't necessarily applicable across the board. So I decided, being the person that I am, that I would start my own YouTube channel. So I started that underneath the banner of the Amazon Interviewers whilst I was still working at Amazon. They really liked it. They supported me. They promoted it, etc. Time came and my journey at Amazon was over, and I decided if I would just kind of keep this Amazon interview preparation thing going. I developed some digital courses because I wanted to make sure that people could actually access this type of training in a reasonable fee, I suppose. Some of the other people that I was starting to see out there were astronomical in terms of cost, and I didn't think that was fair. So I set up a little digital course. I did a little one-to-one coaching. To sum up, kind of after a while, I crossed paths with Yevgeny. We had a common client who told us that we would really like each other. So we decided to meet. We did really like each other and thought we'd be better off working together than working against each other. So we joined our businesses together. And here we are, or here I am. Yevgeny's probably watching TV at this point. Day One Careers. So I'm sure what you'll see is we've got enormous amounts of content on the YouTube channel. We have a blog on the back of our website. We have an amazing free community that I will give you information on a little bit later, and an amazing AI tool that we have created to be a coach that you can use for free. So all sorts of fabulous things that are available for free. And of course, we have our incredible digital courses, and Yevgeny and I both offer one-to-one coaching services. This session is part of what we do for you all for free every single week. We are here religiously, other than when time zones really mess with my head. That's twice a year. Other than that, we are here religiously. We might take a pause for the holidays in December. I can't quite remember, but we are here. And the idea is, if you have questions that you would like to ask and you haven't been able to get the insight from anyone else, you can ask them of me. There are a couple of ground rules to this, however, because I am not all knowing and all seeing. Much don't tell my kids that, obviously. They obviously think I'm all knowing and all seeing, but actually I'm not. So there are some parameters. On one end of the spectrum, if you just have a very general question, hey, Gigi, I'm interviewing for Amazon tomorrow. Can you give me any tips? I'm just going to pass you straight to the YouTube channel, because there's like hours and hours of tips on there. And we could take up this entire 1 hour session with me just blah, 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 tips. So we won't be doing that. On the other side of the spectrum, if you have a very specific question that relates to the functional questions that you might face, if you're a solutions architect, or if you're a lawyer, or if you're a program manager, if you have questions about the functional side of things, I'm unlikely to be able to answer them. There are thousands, dare I even imagine tens of thousands of different job families in Amazon, and no one person is going to be able to know the specifics of the functional questions that you have a high probability of being asked across thousands and thousands of job families. So if that's the nature of your question, I am afraid I'm unlikely to be able to answer it. Anything in between is probably fair game. So have a think about what questions you want to ask. The actual process of asking those questions, super simple. We've got this little block here on the right-hand side. I assume it's the right for you all as well. You can just type in your question there. If your question is a long one and you run out of characters, because there is a character limit, at the end of the last full word, just put a number 1. And then I'll know that somewhere there's a number 2. And I will scroll down, keep continuing on in the next block until you reach the either end of your question, or you hit the character limits and you get to the last full word, you put a 2. Hopefully you get the gist of it. And that's about it. I'm going to aim, if I can't answer your question, to at least tell you I can't answer your question rather than ignore you, because people understandably get a bit upset when they think I'm ignoring them, which I would never do intentionally, I promise you. Maybe my husband, but we won't go there. Is he watching? No, he's not home. Usually he's watching. Not home from work yet, so no risk there. All right, so I'm just going to get going now, folks. There's not a huge number of questions, so if we finish early, that's fine by me. I can go and make the family dinner, which of course I have the pleasure of doing. But we'll get going. So who do we have first here? All right, so okay. Let's go here, Mohit. I'm not sure I will be able to answer this question, but I will give it a go. So what's happening, folks, is I'm pinning the question that I'm doing at the top of the chat. So hopefully you can see it. If you can't see the question, let me know. I will read it out as well for those who are choosing to listen to this as an audio only. If anybody does, I don't know. So let's go for it. So Mohit, I have a small question. My friend was terminated from Amazon on performance basis while on probation. Okay. Amazon helpline told him he was eligible for rehire after 6 months. Now, when applied, right? So there's there's a little thing here, right? So I'm going down to part 2. Pin that. Okay, so they're telling him he is eligible after 2 years. Okay. That sounds more correct to me than 6 months. I've never heard of a 6-month eligibility for someone who has been terminated. So, right, and now you're asking me to please advise. Okay, so Mohit, Amazon policies do change. So I cannot say that I have the most up-to-date policies that Amazon is following, because let's be clear, I do not currently work for Amazon. But all I can say is that when I was there, the rehire timeline was 2 years after termination. I've also, obviously, I pay a lot of attention to what goes on Reddit as well. And I've quite recently seen someone talking about a similar subject on Reddit. So my view is that it probably is a 2-year time frame, and I've no idea why someone said it was 6 months. and your friend should probably wait the full 2 years. I mean, the reality is, if you got terminated for underperformance less than 6 months ago, then the reality is you're probably not yet in the space that you need to be in order to be successful in Amazon. So your friend probably doesn't want to go back any earlier than 2 months if their ambition is to go back and stay there. So my advice is wait the 2 years, build up the experience, think about all of the feedback that your friend got from his manager at the time when they were doing kind of the performance pieces, work on those, and then aim to re-enter Amazon after the 2 years. Okay, so let's unpin Mohit and see what else is here. Right, we've got Haley. Oh, Haley, you've just reminded me I meant to message my friend Haley in Australia at the weekend and I forgot. So thanks for joining, Haley. At least you've reminded me I need to do that. So what has Haley got to ask us? Hi, Gigi. I was a contractor at Amazon, okay, through an external recruiter and left last December. Is there any waiting period before you can apply for a full-time role? Not that I'm aware of, Haley. Again, as I said to Mohit, I'm not au fait with the most current policies, but as far as I know from my time there should be no reason why you need to wait unless you were sacked or let go. If you were let go because it was just around headcount, then it's not a performance issue, then you're fine. Don't worry about it. If you left for a performance issue, that might be a different kettle of fish. But if we assume that you left because the contract was up and they didn't have the budget for the headcount, or you had decided to move on, then there's, as far as I'm aware, no wait period that you need to undertake before you can apply for a full-time role. Okay, let's pop you back in, Haley. Okay. What else do we have? Parry. Right. So Parry is saying, hi, Gigi. Should our answer to behavioral questions be entirely star stories related to the role we're applying to? This is a really good question, Parry, and one I answer frequently for my clients. So it's a bit of a balancing act because you certainly want to be able to demonstrate that you have experience of that particular role, or at least transferable skills that apply to that role, because people aren't always jumping from the exact role into the exact role application. So you definitely want to be able to demonstrate across, let's say, the majority of your stories, a direct link to the type of work that they're looking for in this particular role. But you don't have to have 100% of your stories connected to the role. The point of behavioral questions is not to test your functional skills. The point of behavioral questions is to test you for the leadership principles. So your primary objective always has to be that your example, your star story, connects to the question that you're being asked. Then secondarily, that's correct, secondary, I don't know, whatever, you know what I mean. Then as a second priority, that's so much easier. Should have gone with that first. As a second priority, you should then be thinking about, are you telling stories that connect to the role? But we would definitely recommend do not sacrifice a really strong leadership principle focused story simply because it doesn't align with the role that you are interviewing for. It's leadership principle behaviors first, role alignment second. Okay. 50-50 is fine. Oh, 50-50, yeah, 50-50. Once you're kind of shifting up to 60 in favor of functional and then 40 for leadership principle, you know what I'm saying, for functional connection, you're fine. I just wouldn't go the other direction where the majority of your stories are kind of not connected to the role that you're applying for. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain blip then. The words didn't go from my head to my mouth, which is unusual for me. Usually I'd have no problem with words coming up my mouth. Okay, hope that makes sense, Parry. Courtney. Uh, Courtney, I'm really sorry. So let's cover what Courtney says. What separates a hire from a strong hire in the eyes of a bar raiser? Well, a strong hire is going to, this is not the answer that you want, but this is the only answer I can give you. A strong hire is going to demonstrate strength across the vast majority of leadership principles that they're tested on. Now, by strength, what I mean by is there is a 5-point scale that each of your interviewers is going to be assessing each of the leadership principles that they are questioning you on. The scale is at the top end, it's strength, then it's some strength, then it's neutral, then there's some concern, and then there's concern at the bottom. So if you're scoring the vast majority of the leadership principles at the top end at strength, then you end up looking like a strong hire. Now, I know, Courtney, what you're going to ask me next. I'm predicting you're going to ask me, okay, how do we get to be a strength on a leadership principle? That's a bit more complicated and actually almost impossible to 100% codify. Um, the high level answer is really that you demonstrate all of the behaviors that they're looking for repeatedly in for that particular leadership principle. Exactly how you then demonstrate that is completely contextual to the particular story that you're trying to share to demonstrate those leadership principles. You're obviously going to be able to show really key things like impact, significance, scope and complexity, all of these types of things. But again, all of those are contextually relevant to the story that you share. And therefore, it's impossible for me to give you some kind of aggregated view as to what that looks like. I would literally have to hear the story that you're sharing with me. So that's how you get to be a strong hire at the kind of macro level. But when it comes to Gigi, please tell me exactly what I write in order to be able to be considered strong to then get strong hire. Unfortunately, there's no codification for that. But I hope that at least makes sense in terms of the process. Oh, and by the way, what separates a hire from a strong hire in the eyes of a bar raiser is no different to what separates a hire from a strong hire in the eyes of everybody else, right? The bar raiser's eyes and their standards and all of those things are meant to be the same as everybody else. Or should I say everyone else's standards are meant to be the same as the bar raiser? Either way, I suppose works. Okay, so I'm going to put you back in there, Courtney. Thank you for your question. Okay, you have a follow-up. Let's see if I understand this one. Are there ways candidates unintentionally signal that they're not truly Amazonian even when they answer questions well? No, no, I can't pinpoint things that candidates do that demonstrate they're not truly Amazonian. Oh, do you know what? Yes, there is. And I'll kind of just reverse engineer the thing that shows that people are truly Amazonians. Um, it's going to be the lack of use of data. If you're not referring to data or metrics in your story, you're not Amazonian. And I don't mean that by all of the results that you talk about have to have some kind of commercial or monetary metric in them. I don't mean that, but rather that you are able to talk about how you operate in your work in a metric focused way. So, for example, and this is a silly example, but it just gets me away from being job family specific. So, I use this all the time with my clients, by the way. So, imagine that there are two people waiting in their cars but in a behind a set of traffic lights. I'm sure you call them traffic lights in the US as well. So two cars, or maybe let's say they're waiting side by side by a set of traffic lights. Those two people wait for those traffic lights, and then eventually they go into work, and they're both a bit late. The non-Amazonian type person is going to go into work and they will say, yes, I'm sorry I'm late. I was sat by a traffic light for absolutely ages. The Amazonian person would say, yeah, I'm sorry I'm late for work. I was stuck at a traffic light for 15 minutes and 25 seconds. The people that think metrically and in data are intrinsically Amazonians. People that don't are intrinsically not. So I would have a look at the stories that you are writing and ask yourself, where can I inject data and metrics in my story? not just in the results, but through the actual process of the actions that you took, or in the situation, or in the task that you're going to set yourself. Amazonians think in numbers, think in data, think in metrics. If you don't, then you're not. I hope that helps. Sorry if the illustration was a little bit out there, but it's easier than coming up with one specific for a software development engineer, or a solutions architect, or a lawyer, or a product manager, or a program manager, or a marketer, or a whatever it might, contract negotiator, or whatever it might be. All right, so here's a good one. Procrastination land. Oh my God, that's like my house. Procrastination land is my house. Trying to get my kids to study for their exams. It's like procrastination central here. Okay. Hi, Gigi. Is it true for roles L3 to L5 we don't have a bar raise around? Okay. So, no, not holistically true of everybody that interviews at L3, L4, L5. There are some teams and some instances where the bar raiser has been removed from the actual interview process, and they function kind of as a back office function, and they manage the debrief, and they're told all about the candidate and try and make a judgment on whether the candidate is bar raising or not, having not met the candidate. But that isn't true for all roles. I have plenty of my clients who are interviewing at L5. I don't usually work with people who are L4s, but plenty of L5s that I work with are definitely getting bar raisers. So as I say, the policies do change all of the time. And once again, I do not currently work at Amazon, but certainly from my own client base, I can tell you that there are still L5s who are definitely seeing bar raisers. I would imagine it's more likely that L3s and L4s may not actually ever face a bar raiser, but there is a requirement for all of those people who come into the business to have been considered by a bar raiser, because clearly that's the policy. Everyone has to raise the bar. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to pop you back in. I should have procrastinated on that answer. I feel I missed a trick there. I missed a trick. Okay. Who's next? Who's next? Oh, I've lost my place. There, Akbar. Okay, let's pop you there and pin your message. Right. I'm interviewing for an L6 role. Okay. My recruiter told me that my next interview will be focused on 2 leadership principles out of 4 that she shared. I've prepared 8 stories. Is that enough? Okay, so right, so I'm not sure whether this is phone screen 1 or phone screen 2, but it doesn't really matter. If you've got 2 leadership principles, you're going to be in early phone screen rounds. Have you prepared? Is 8 enough? That's almost impossible to know, Akbar, because unless we know the kind of the range of leadership principles that those 8 stories touch on, I cannot tell you whether 8 is enough. Assuming that the 8 that you've done have elements or a couple of leadership principles in each of them, then the probability of you being asked a question on a leadership principle that your stories relate to is much higher. Having said that, we do always recommend that the stories that you tell have one principle, dare I say principle primary, let's say primary, otherwise we've got too many types of principles. You have a primary leadership principle for all of your stories, and then maybe 1 or 2 secondary leadership principles in that story. The reason why we suggest that is if you just have stories that have a smattering of 5 or 6 leadership principles across the entire story, then you're never going to demonstrate sufficient volume of evidence of behaviors of any single leadership principle to be able to be judged as being strong in that. So in principle, I would have thought 8 would be okay to cover what will probably be 3 or 4 questions. But you just need to make sure that you've got the leadership principles covered through a primary and then some secondaries. You can probably ignore strive to be Earth's best. In fact, I guarantee you can ignore strive to be Earth's best employer and success and scale bring broad responsibility. They're dreadful leadership principles. They were dreadful when they launched them, and unsurprisingly, no one uses them. And I really think they should just accept the fact that they were dreadful and withdraw them, but never mind. So no one tests on those. or very rarely. I've had one candidate since they were launched in 2022 who got asked a question on success and scale brings broad responsibility. The other thing you can probably ignore is going to be frugality, depending on the role that you're applying for. Frugality isn't often tested, but if you are a budget owner and expected to deliver capabilities based on a fixed budget, then you might be tested by frugality, but most people are not tested on frugality. And if you're not going to be a team lead and you're not going to have direct reports, then you could also probably ignore hire and develop the best. But outside those four, the remaining 12 are probably fair game. Okay, so, oh, and she shared four of them anyway. Okay, I've spent ages chatting. I wasn't even paying attention. So you should be fine because you know which four leadership principles you have. So just make sure you incorporate them in those 8 stories and you should be grand. That would have been much quicker if I'd paid attention to that part. Moving on then. Oh, I am going to brutalize this person's name. I'm really, really sorry. So, oh gosh, I'm going to do a horrible job of this. Right, so this I've got. No, I'm not even going to try. I'm sorry. I don't want to offend you. I'll probably offend you by not attempting your name and offend you by attempting your name. So I'm just going to not attempt it and offend you that way. Okay. Hi, Gigi. I have my phone screening already, and now I have a call coming up with a recruiter. I don't know what to expect. Could it be a rejection? I think if you've already had a phone screen, they are unlikely to invest time in a call to tell you the outcome. It's for loops, I would almost certainly expect someone to make a call to you if you pass or fail. But in early phone screens, because of the volume that happened through early phone screens, it's super inefficient to call everyone with a rejection. So I would, I don't know how much money I would bet on it. I have no money, by the way, people, just being clear. But I think it's probably more likely a positive outcome. But if it's not, don't come back and shout at me and say I raised your hopes unfairly. It's just my guess that I think it would waste time calling everyone that was rejected in early rounds. Generally, only 1 in 10 makes it through. At least that was my experience of about 1 in 10. So you have reason to be positive, I think. Right, let's pop you back in. Right. Okay. Okay, yeah, okay. So, hey, you got an incline for an L4 after interviewing for an L5 BIE, right? So, BIE, Business Information Engineer, in case anybody doesn't know, but need to find a new team. How hard is it to find an L4 BIE role as an external hire, not a new grad? And any tips on finding an L4? I don't know how to answer that if I'm honest with you, because I don't know by what measure I should be judging. Is it hard to find an L4 BIE? So there are L4 BIE roles, right? There are plenty of them. I worked with plenty of L4 BIEs. So it's not a case that that's a very, very rare job family at that level. So I guess that answers that question. As an external hire, I have no data to be able to tell you whether it is or is harder or not harder as an external hire to get an L4 BIE. I'm sorry, I have no data points for that. And any tips on finding an L4 position? Only the same tips that I would give to everybody else, which is obviously keep an eye on the jobs board, keep an eye on platforms like LinkedIn, where recruiters are often there kind of recruiting for roles. The other thing I would say is if you're seeing L5 BIE roles being promoted by recruiters on LinkedIn, reach out to them and just say, look, I know you're recruiting for an L5, but I have pre-approval from a bar raiser as an L4. Will you be recruiting any L4s anytime soon? And if so, please bear me in mind, that type of thing, just to try and make some connections. And I guess that would be it. So good luck. Let's unpin you and move on to the next one. Oh, we've got loads of BIE people here. I told you, plenty of roles. Okay. Oh, sorry, people. I'm just going to take a quick swig of my drink because without Yevgeny here to give me breaks, it's a bit full on. So I'm just going to put you on mute so you don't hear me slurping. There we go. Fortunately, I have a nice water bottle here with me and not one of my kids' scabby school water bottles, which is what I usually use. All right, so walks and gossips. I mean, sounds great. I'm up for a walk and a gossip. You had your phone interview at Amazon on the 22nd of April. This always throws me. In England we do the dates the other way around, so I always have to recompute my brain to do it the US way for a BIE role. I haven't heard anything from the recruiter since then. Mm, does it mean I wasn't selected for the loop? Okay, so the 22nd, I'm just going to look at some dates on my calendar. So the 22nd was Tuesday, which is apparently Earth Day. Who knew? All right, so the 23rd is one day, the 24th is the second day. In theory, you should have heard back on Friday, the 25th, but clearly you haven't. We are now on Monday, the 28th. Now, because you're in the US, you're going to be a number of hours behind me, depending on what part of the US you're in. So essentially, your recruiter is about one day behind in terms of getting back to you because the phone screen is a 2-day SLA. So at this point, actually, I wouldn't call it at all in terms of whether you are or are not likely to have made it through to loop, because one day late, to be honest with you, isn't a huge amount. So what I would say to you is wait until you've made it through the whole of today, still not heard back from your recruiter, and then tomorrow morning, send them an email back and just say, you know, love the interview, super keen on moving through into the next step. Are you able to give me any update on where we are? And just super polite and chill, and hopefully they will then be able to get back to you. I hope that helps. Let's unpin you and move. Oh, Haley's back. Hey, Haley. Right. Does applying through an internal referral significantly increase your chances of getting interviews? And if L5 roles consider senior roles? Okay, two parts to that. So you're asking me, if you get an internal referral, will it significantly improve your chances of getting an interview? Statistically speaking, yes, because what an internal referral does is it bypasses the recruiter and goes send your resume straight to the hiring manager. And therefore, you skip out one step of the process. Statistically, then you have effectively achieved a 100% success rate through the first step of the process. Therefore, your chances of being interviewed are higher than someone who has to go through that process. And there's like, I don't know, 15, 20% of them making it through. However, you being referred internally does not place any obligation on the hiring manager to interview you. So the only advantage of an internal referral is to effectively bypass the recruiter. It's then up to the hiring manager as to whether they want to interview you or not. And it is the power of your resume that will enable that decision to be made. The other thing that you can do, and that I would strongly advise if you are using an internal referral, is to get that person to also directly email the hiring manager and make a recommendation as to why they think you're a good fit for this role. I would really recommend that you write that email as to why you're a good fit for the role and reference the job description, and then simply get your internal referrer to kind of paste that into their own email and send it on. What I definitely found when I was taking internal referrals at Amazon was on, I would say, an easy 80% of the occasions where I got an internal referral, the candidate actually was not a fit for the role at all. And I would simply have to go back to their referrer and say, no, they're not a fit. So, you know, make sure that there's a good narrative that explains why you are a fit for the role, that you can convince yourself, and then share that with your friend, and they'll then pass it on to the hiring manager. Okay, let's unpin you, Haley. Okay. Chetan, my loop interview is scheduled this week. Wish me luck. Should we maintain eye contact by looking directly into the interview camera during virtual interviews? It doesn't really make any difference. No one should be making a decision to hire you or not based on whether you maintained eye contact with them or if you smiled. I know you're going to get loads of advice like that. And to a degree, I suppose there are some subconscious triggers that you might potentially be tapping into. But if your interviewer is doing their job properly, they should not be paying attention to any of those things. The other thing is, your interviewer is probably not going to be looking at the camera either. They're going to end up looking at the screen like I'm looking at the screen right now, because your face will be on the screen and humans can't help but talk to faces. It actually takes a very conscious effort to look at the camera to talk to someone when their face is actually much further below. So if I were you, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you can, then by all means look in the camera, but no one's going to be penalizing you if you don't do that. I hope that answers that question. So I'm going to pop you back in. Oh, this has done a big jump. I'm sorry, folks. It sometimes does these giant jumps, and then I have to reorientate myself. Entertain yourselves while I'm scrolling. Okay. Oh, we've got a few more questions from Haley here. Okay, let's get them in, Haley. Okay, so you have experience in purchasing, but the role you're interested in is in global sourcing. All right. Let's replace the pin message with your next point. Since I have less sourcing experience, could you advise if it would still be a good fit? I'm also a bit concerned that I might not have enough examples to support my answers during the behavioral questions. Um, So, look, I haven't seen your resume and I haven't seen the job description. So, Haley, it's impossible for me to tell you whether I think you are still a fit for the role. What you really, really need to be paying attention to when it comes to the job description, in terms of, are you a fit, is the basic requirements. The hiring manager should put everything that are absolute basic fundamental requirements into that section of the job description. If you meet all of those, then you're potentially a fit. Then go on to the preferred requirements. If you meet all of those, you're probably a strong potential fit. If you only meet some of those, you become a slightly weaker potential fit. But I'm afraid at a kind of a massive macro level of what you've just shared with me, and in absence of seeing your resume and the job description, I can't give you anything more directional than that, I'm afraid. Definitely go to the job description. Okay, moving on. Okay, we have Samuel. Hello, Samuel. I passed my Amazon loop, congratulations, tech, but my position got filled. Yes. Is it harmful to keep suggesting roles to the recruiter? Okay. So, um, the thing is, the recruiter that was filling that role, their job is to fill that role and any other roles that are on their slate. Their job is not to get you a role. So, although it is not necessarily harmful to keep sending them job codes and job descriptions that you're interested in, it's probably not going to get you very far, because you're not going to be very high up their priority list to focus their resources on, because they've got their roles to fill. So, my strong suggestion for everyone in this situation is to apply directly to any other roles that you have identified as being potential, and then email your current recruiter to let them know that you've applied for that role, and ask them if they wouldn't mind just making contact with the recruiter for that role and letting them know a little bit about you. But never passively wait for your recruiter to go and find you a role, because they're not going to do it. The reality is they're not going to do it. So you take ownership, apply for roles that you're interested in, and then just send a message off to that recruiter and see if they will be kind enough to connect you with the new recruiter for that role. Okay, so dropping you back in. Oh, I'm starting to get a headache as well. Probably haven't drunk enough water today. It's been very warm here in London, bizarrely warm for this time of year. So hang on, mute again. Sorry, lad. Sorry, calling you lads is very British. Probably not the right way to go. Okay, moving on. Pin this one. Oh. Right, so pin this. Right, so we have Ganala. Is that it? I'm really sorry if I butchered it. I had a BR round on the 18th of April. Okay, so that's 10 days ago, and you've not received any update yet. Okay. How much time it usually takes? Does it mean I've cleared all the rounds because I had attended the BR round? Okay. Right, let's break this apart. Um, the final round is multiple interviews. So in the final stage, final round, you are always going to attend all of the interviews that are in that round, which will include a bar raiser. So having seen a bar raiser is not an indication of having achieved anything in particular. It is just part of that process. So let's park that question. In terms of having not received an update and how much time does it usually take? So Amazon has a 5-day SLA for coming back to people after loop. Now, obviously yours was 10 days ago, so you are well over that 5-day, although that does include the Easter period. And I'm not quite sure. In the UK, we have a bank holiday for like 3 days over that, and I'm not quite sure how it works in the US. So, whatever that bank holiday or holiday period is, you have to exclude that from your timeline. So, assuming worst case scenario, it's the UK, which I know it's not, but that's just the worst case scenario. So, really, only the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would count, and today would be the fifth day. So, worst case scenario from if it was UK, today would be 5 days. If it's probably the US, I think you have less days, so it may be actually 4 days or 6 days late for from a US point of view. So I think that's probably well within the boundaries of tolerance. Again, it's a 5-day SLA, but how many times it actually gets hit, I think it's pretty rare these days. So I would say just wait a couple more days. If you don't hear anything, like I said earlier, just reach back out to your recruiter and remind them how excited you are about the role and ask them if there is any update. Okay, unpin that message. Gonna keep going. Oh, I've lost it again. I'm gonna have to go back to our old software. This one is too tricky. Okay, Chetan. Is it appropriate to request feedback at the end of each interview round? Absolutely not, and no one will ever give it to you. So don't bother. Amazonians are taught to stay very kind of expressionless and po-faced. So if it feels like they're being a little bit chilly, they're not intentionally doing that, but the training teaches you to not try to give anything away because they don't want to potentially mislead candidates, and what you feel about a candidate in the actual interview can often change materially once you reflect on your notes, and then can change again once you get into debrief. So interviewers are absolutely trained not to come to any conclusions in the actual interview itself, and to only really reflect on the interview once they have left the room and reviewed their notes. So do not bother asking any Amazonian for feedback at the end of an interview. They will not give it to you. It's against company policy. Okay, I'm pinning that one. Right, H. Lee. I have an interview loop coming up for an L5 role, language engineer, but I think I'm also a strong fit for another L5 role, language data scientist. Okay. Replace that with the next question. Job responsibilities to us are similar, but the latter requires stronger data science skills. Okay, right, right. Is it at all possible to mention at this point that I would like to also be considered for the latter title? Um, If I were you, I would simply just apply for the latter title. I'm not clear whether it's actually in the same team where these two roles exist. And you probably wouldn't be from the job description either. I'm not sure it's something that I would mention to the actual interview loop people, because really they're interviewing you for that role. They probably have no interest in the other role, and they're probably not going to be too thrilled if you talk about that one. So I would just apply directly to that other role and then see what happens. But no one's going to slow processes down for this role in order to give you an opportunity to apply for that role. It's just not the way Amazon works. So if you are interested, just apply directly. Okay, so let's unpin that. Okay, for visa purposes, your job title remained the same, software developer, though your experience in current company. However, the task you did was quite different. Analyst type of work. Okay. On your resume, what should I mention if I'm applying to only analyst roles? Um, I would just put it in brackets afterwards. Just put the name of the alternative job title in brackets after your resume, after the job title for software development engineer, and then bracket whatever the analytical title would be. And then hopefully that clears it up. Okay, let's unpin that one. Moving on, I'm conscious of time now. We've only got 15 minutes left. Have I been talking for a full 45 minutes? No wonder my throat hurts. Okay, and we've still got quite a few questions. Oh, I'm not going to get through them all. Okay, don't worry. Don't panic, Gigi. Don't panic. We'll get there. Okay, Haley, back again. Just I'll do this one quickly, and then I'm going to try and jump to a few new people. Okay, for non-tech roles, L5, is it common to have a case study or Excel skills to test during the interview process? Yes. Let's just if that's a skill that they require for the actual job itself, that would not be uncommon. All right. Oh, okay. We're gonna sold out for Christ. I mean, that's hilarious. How do you people come up with these? Right. So I guess we're just congratulating you, sold out for Christ. You managed to get yourself an L4 by the looks of it. So congratulations. Moving on then. Let's just unpin that. Okay. We've got some new people here. Okay. This is interesting. Right. ASD Ganesh. Hi. Hope I'm doing good. I am doing well. I can hear my husband making the dinner in the other room, so it's making me very happy because it means I don't have to do it. Um, you have a loop tomorrow. None of the people in the interview panel is technical. In my loop, should I stick to two tech-heavy situations? That lacks context. So if none of the people in your loop are technical, then I'm going to assume that you are not applying for a heavy technical role, because if you were, you would need technical people in your loop to be able to test you for your functional expertise. So if you don't think either all of those people, or if you think that from the job title that you've been given, and this is for everybody, suggests that that individual is not as technically knowledgeable as you are in your subject area, don't go tech heavy, because you're going to confuse the, I was going to use a bad word there, but you're going to confuse them. And if you're answering leadership principle questions, they are assessing you primarily on the leadership behaviors, and therefore going all in on the technical is going to add no value whatsoever, because it won't answer what they're looking for data on, leadership principles, and you risk confusing the noggin out of them. So I would, if I were you, try and wind back on the technical detail and make sure you are focusing on the how behaviors of yourself. Okay. Hope that helps. Going to unpin you. Okay, next one. Eduardo. Okay, hi. You're preparing your writing sample for the recruitment process. Okay. Is it okay? You're going to ask me, is it okay if you repeat the writing assessments, one of the responses during it? Yes, that's absolutely fine. No problem. If anyone's wondering why Eduardo is doing a writing sample and you've not been asked to do a writing sample, anyone that is applying for an L5. Oh, apparently I gave myself a thumbs up. Lucky me. Anyone who is applying for an L6 position and above is asked to do a writing sample so they can get a sense of, are you going to be able to write documents? Sometimes people who are in L5 roles are also asked for a writing assessment because they are in a type of role where they have to do a lot of writing, like product managers, etc. So if you've not been asked to do a writing sample, don't panic. It's not that anything has gone wrong. Okay, this is kind of weird. I've scanned this and okay. So you've been to a TPM interview before and haven't been through. The last feedback was you only missed the bar raiser by a few points, meaning they're about to hire me. How do I raise the bar against existing employees. That's a how long is a piece of string, Ivan, or Ivan, isn't it? I there's no way of me answering that question because I don't know what level you're interviewing at. I don't know the community that they were benchmarking you against. There is simply no way of me doing that. The only thing that you can do, because you do not know and will not know how strong the individuals are within the team that you are being referenced against, is swing the pendulum as far as you can towards complexity and scope and impact in your stories. There is no way of predicting what that has to be in order for you to be considered bar raising. If there was, I would be able to sell it and I would make an absolute fortune, which I do not at the moment. As you can see, I'm wearing scabby t-shirts, etc. So unfortunately, there is no magic answer to that. You just have to swing the pendulum as far as you can without making it sound completely ridiculous. Okay, Chetan. Okay, this is a quick one. What strategies or tips would I recommend for succeeding in the bar raiser round? Exactly the same strategies and tips that I would recommend for every round, because there is nothing different about the bar raiser round than there is about every single other round. So any tips that you're looking for, go to the YouTube channel because it is all there. It all applies. Okay. Right. Well, I think I've just explained that to you. His next question is, could I explain the difference between the hiring manager and the bar raiser in the interview process? There's no difference whatsoever. Exactly the same process. They're looking for exactly the same things. The only difference is their role in the process that you are not involved in, i.e., what happens in the when everyone goes and sits in debrief. So, from your perspective, there's no difference whatsoever. Okay. Yeah, R. Sharma, just to let you know, I can't answer that question because your question is about the functional aspect of your interview. And I'm not an expert in all of the tens of thousands of job families and the functional questions that they'll ask and what they're looking for. So I'm just going to skip that, but wanted to let you know that there's a reason why I've skipped you. I'm not just ignoring you because I don't know, I don't like the name R. Sharma or whatever. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start trying to pick some people who haven't asked questions before because we're running out of time and I don't want people to feel that they came joined and I was answering everyone else's questions. So, oh, okay. Right, I'm going to go with three here. I'm really sorry if that's not correct. I recently interviewed for a BIE. I told you there are loads of BIE roles. You thought the loop went great, but the outcome wasn't favorable. How soon can you reapply? Right. Um, it depends. There are two possible outcomes when you fail a loop. The first possible outcome is a recycle. And a recycle is they like you, they think you could potentially be an Amazonian, but you just weren't a good fit for this role, or this just wasn't quite your day. And they will tell the recruiter that, okay, this is a recycle, which means you can apply straight away for any other roles. The second version is where they really don't think that you are right for Amazon at this point in time. And literally, it's not right for Amazon in this point in time, in which case that's a no recycle. A no recycle is a 12-month cooling off period. There used to be lots of different cooling off periods, and different teams were using different ones. And they did an update to the policy at the end of last year, I think November last year, bringing all of those together. And everybody now is meant to, if you are a no recycle, implement a 12-month cooling off period. So if you don't know which of those you have, you should reach back out to the recruiter and ask them, are you a recycle or are you moving into a cooling off period? Okay, let's see if I can find anybody else that I haven't answered yet. Okay, just going to pick Alison here. Oh, Anton. Right, Anton. Hey, Anton. You did an interview last Monday and you got a phone call asking you to apply for a higher level position, but you still want the lower level position. Is it a rejection? Right. I don't know because I don't know, Anton, why they offered you the opportunity to apply for a higher level role. So you should speak to the recruiter. That's the only thing I can say because there's not enough information for me to know. whether they've decided that you're just not right for the lower level, or if they just want to give you the opportunity because they think you might be right for the higher level, or if they want you to interview for the higher level with a view that if you don't raise the bar at the higher level, they might still employ you at the lower level. Who knows? Anything is possible. So you should definitely talk to the recruiter. Okay, so I'm gonna go for one more, maybe two more questions, and then, folks, I have amazing freebies which I should have mentioned at the beginning. So once I finish chatting with everyone, I will just give you a link to our amazing freebies, and where the link is, I don't know. I've got to try and find that quickly now. So I'm gonna quickly. Oh, Gigi, what are you doing? All right, I'm gonna pick. Right, pick another question. Right, this looks weird. All right, let's pin this one. So your question is, hey Gigi, I had a first interview and received negative feedback. All right. After they told me it was a systems error, and they will be scheduling the final meeting. After that, they asked you to do a background check. Is this normal to do a background check after the loop? Thank you. Love the videos. So I have never heard of. I'm trying to remember whether the background check happens before the offer or after the offer. I'm struggling to remember that. It's they would only do a background check. Oh, you're from Brazil. Right. Okay. Sorry. I'm getting more comments. Okay. So I cannot speak to the specific process in Brazil, but I personally would not be enamored of anyone doing a background check on me before I've actually accepted a job. um, because you might not want anyone to know that you're interviewing for this until such point where you feel relatively confident that they are actually going to offer you a job. So I don't know, Bayer, because I don't know whether the policy in Brazil is different to what I would have experienced in Europe and North America. So all I would say is just be careful or confident that the people that you are giving them for your background check are safe, and that nothing is going to end up getting back to your current employer if you have one, if you don't want that current employer to know. Okay. Right. So, folks, I'm going to give you what I believe is the best freebie available on YouTube or anywhere else for interviewing at Amazon. And now I just need to make sure that I have the right URL. I've been very badly organized here. Okay, don't allow that one. Oh no, I'm sorry, lads, this is really bad. Oh, I keep doing that one, don't I? We don't do lads, it's just the wrong term to use, isn't it? Oh, yay, yay, I got the right URL. I should just write it down somewhere really, shouldn't I? So in the chat, everybody, I am putting in a URL, day1.careers/free-stuff. I'm going to spin through this so that you can all go off and do whatever it is you need to do. I'm so hungry. Right. So at the end of that kind of free stuff link, there are 3 key things that you are definitely going to want to get hold of to get ready for your Amazon interview. First thing is a little bit of a taster of our flagship Amazon interview preparation course called the Amazon Interview Success System. That system literally walks you step by step by step by step through everything that you need to know and everything that you need to do to prepare for your Amazon interview. It provides incredible deep insight into the leadership principles to help you really identify what the right stories are and then what exactly you need to put into your stories to land that leadership principle. This is a little free sample of the customer obsession part of the course. So that you can just kind of get a flavor. Most people are going to be asked customer obsession at some point. So pretty much everyone is going to get benefit from this. So definitely go and grab that. That will be super useful for you. The other thing that you will get is what we call the Amazon Interview Tool Pack. Now, there are some kind of models that you can use, but the most important thing in that tool pack is a bank of plausible Amazon interview questions. They are not the exact Amazon interview questions. They would sue me if I tried to give you those, but these are our version of questions that are plausible that someone might ask you. And bear in mind, not every single interviewer picks questions directly from the Amazon interview bank anyway. They can make up their own. So you can go there, use those for practice. As I said, don't assume that any of those will come up in the interview, because they won't, because we created them, but they're certainly good for practice. The third thing that you will get there is access to our free community, our Heartbeat community. In our Heartbeat community, I think we now have about 8,000 members in that community. Some of them were applying ages ago and are no longer active, but there are plenty of people who are currently applying and active in the community. So you can connect with people and do mock interviews with each other. We also have, as I mentioned at the beginning, an amazing chatbot. It's basically a ChatGPT model that we have trained on all of the content on the YouTube channel. So if you have a question and you don't want to have to trawl your way through the YouTube channel, don't mind the fact that I spent thousands of hours making that channel beautiful. Don't you worry about that. If you want a shortcut, you can just go and ask Andy, who is our chatbot in the Heartbeat community, and he will attempt to answer any question that you have. And if it's in the YouTube channel, Andy will know about it. Okay, so with that all said, everyone, we are now at time and I'm absolutely starving. So I'm going to go and eat my evening meal. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for all of the questions. You've kept me very, very busy for a full hour. If I did not get to your question and you are desperate to have me answer it, feel free to drop that question into any of the comment sections on any of the videos, and I will probably pick it up and broadly 24 hours, 48 hours for me to get back to you on those. So do feel free just to drop them in. Don't worry about which one it is and whether it makes sense. Just drop it in there and I will attempt to get back to you. So for those of you that have interviews coming up, I have my fingers very, very tightly crossed for you. Wishing you the very, very best of luck. Have a great week. And please, everybody, stay safe in this completely insane world. And hopefully I will see you next week. Be safe. Take care of all of yourselves and your families.